Hi, my name is Melissa Widner and I'm a general partner with NAB Ventures, and I've been asked to talk to UNSW today about what strategic investors look for in a startup. To start off with, a strategic investor is an investor that's part of a company. So there's the reasons for making investments aren't just for return, and sometimes it's not for return at all, but for a strategic reason, either to bring innovation into the company or to help the company grow through a partnership with the strategic investor, which is different than an institutional investor, what most standard VCs would be referred to as, who are investing primarily for return only. Different strategic investors look for different things. So it's really important to know when you're approaching a strategic investor, what they're looking for specifically, what kind of requirements they have in investment candidates. For example, with NAB, we're one of the largest banks in the world. If having NAB as a partner, an investment a lot of times leads to a partnership, could help the company succeed, then it's probably a good thing to talk to NAB as a strategic investor. So what we look for investing in companies where we can add value, either by becoming a customer of the product. So when you think of early stage companies, a lot of times it's really hard to land that first big customer. And once you do, it makes the second and third a lot easier. So if it's something where NAB can add value to the company by becoming a customer, that could be a strategic investment. Or NAB is a large business bank. So we also look to invest in companies that sell products and services to small businesses and could leverage NAB's distribution channel to accelerate their growth. So NAB in particular, because we're a bank, is looking for investments in the fintech area, which is financial technology companies. And we're looking for companies that can leverage NAB for their growth, but also companies that might be disruptive to banking as we know it. A lot of banking functions haven't changed over the last several decades, and a lot of experts in the space think that it is ripe for change. And if you're not a fintech company, there are lots of opportunities for strategic investment from other corporates. For example, News has a strategic investment arm for media companies. IAG is forming a venture fund for insurance companies. Caltex makes direct investments for companies that are strategic to them. We get asked a lot, what are the most important criteria when making investment decisions? And one thing that is sure, and you'll hear this from most investors, is the team. The team is very important. A lot of times the business model pivots, so you want to make sure you have a team that can pivot and can succeed in different business models. And the experience of the team is really important. So our preference, I think the preference of any investor would be to invest in a team that's already done it. They've been there and they've succeeded before. But absent that, because most companies that are pitching us don't necessarily have that, it would be companies or people who've been there and failed before, so they've tried it before. That's the next best. And then third would be those that are just really entrepreneurial, really gung-ho, maybe have some industry relevant experience and are starting a company in that space. And absent that, it's great to have that experience or that piece filled with your advisory board. When we're looking at people or looking at who to invest in, when we first meet them, we do look for characteristics of entrepreneurs who are open to ideas and suggestions and want to collaborate. And they're really looking for more than just money. They're looking for help in growing their business. And I think those traits are important, not just for the investor-investee relationship, but early on, we're looking for people who are willing to listen to their customers and to the employees they're trying to hire, people who are open to growth. Passion is important. We would hope that you would be passionate about the project. But entrepreneurs come in all flavors. Some of them are very passionate, and some very successful entrepreneurs don't come across that way. They're more introverts. So what I think really helps is being able to tell a personal story on why you started this business. Maybe it was, you had a real pain point. There was something in your life that happened, or something that you were frustrated about. I mean, there's an example with Jessica May, who's the founder of Enabled Employment. She starts off giving the story of why she started this company. And she was an employee for the federal government for a long time. And she said once she let them know that she had a disability, her job changed. They sort of put her in a corner and left her alone. And she realized that a big percentage of the population in Australia and most companies has some disability, and that the workforce was largely ignoring them. So she's created a workforce marketplace for people with disabilities, and her company is growing like gangbusters. But her ability to talk about her personal story and her personal journey just grabs the investors immediately, and just has us hanging on the next word, and really gives you a strong connection to the company. So all investors are always looking for market validation, and the easiest way to show market validation is by having paying customers. But when it's too early for that, you can get customers who've agreed to become beta customers or trial your product, or who are even helping you co-create the product. No matter who you're pitching, whether it's a strategic investor or an institutional investor, it could be a really long process. They might not be right for this round of funding, but they might be right for the next one. So think of it as a long sales process. There's an example I give. It's a company I made a personal investment in them called Car Next Door. This is like Airbnb for your car. And I met him a year before I actually made an investment, and so did a lot of the other investors. And what he did that was really great, and it was unique, and it was the first time, even though I think I'd done 20 angel investments by that time, it's the first time I'd seen this. He started sending out a monthly report that was titled To Car Next Door's Future Investors. And he would report on his company just as if we were investors. He would report on growth, he would report on some of the current challenges, some of the current wins. So by the time he was raising his next round, we sort of all felt like we were investors. And it was such a great thing to do. In fact, the communication that he did with people who weren't even investors yet was stronger than some of the communication that startup CEOs do with their actual investors. So it was really impressive, and I always use that example, and I've seen a lot of other people around town doing that. So one of the things that I like to see is gender diversity in a management team. There's been a long study, I think it was over 15 years, primarily in the US, and it showed that venture-backed companies with gender diversity on the management team perform better than those without. So it's something that we really like to see. It's hard, I know, when it's only 2 or 3 people, but when they grow, it's something we encourage companies to keep in mind, because it's one of the variables that companies actually have control over.